Bearded Bristol here, and I am just a guy who likes to talk and paint. This is episode 11, and I am very near, well, not very near. I am nearing the end of this piece. I have just a few days left to finish it, and for the purpose of today's video, I want to focus on this one singular tree here, and it's, two-thirds of the way back into the image, but it's got some really stunning color to it. Most of the bark has fallen away from the tree. It is clearly dead, and it almost glows away from the rest of the piece. So that's where I'm going to focus my efforts from a painting perspective. I've got some white, titanium white mixed up, and one of the first things you're going to notice, which is kind of interesting when you do watercolors, is white will oftentimes apply very vibrant, and then it will dry and really fade into the background because as the water is absorbed or evaporates and it absorbs into the paper, that color dissipates because you're layering it over something much darker. Whereas with an oil paint, you can apply white over a darker color, and unless you spread it too thin, you can get almost total coverage. So there's going to be kind of an interesting flow to what's going to be happening here. But I'm going to get started here with just a couple of strokes to kind of highlight the area that I'm going to be working on. And then we'll have us a little talk. And you can also tell as I touch the paper that it's bubbled quite a bit, which is nothing to be particularly concerned about once it's in a frame. I will actually probably try to press this paper out a little bit when I'm finished to try to flatten it some. Then once it's framed, it'll be nice and flat within the picture frame itself. But in terms of a topic of conversation, I've been thinking an awful lot lately, which I say every week, don't I? Yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately. I've been thinking a lot about self-actualization. And it's interesting, if you look up the definition for self-actualization, it will tell you that it's the maximizing and reaching full potential or potentiality of your talents and whatnot. I agree with that definition. It certainly applies. But also, I like to take self-actualization a step further. I believe it's not just reaching that maximization of talents, but just maximizing self in general. And that takes on a whole variety of different areas: emotional, social, obviously the potentiality, the talent perspective. You could say that I'm trying to be a self-actualized artist, among other things. But it's kind of an interesting journey, and it's something that everybody undertakes in one form or another, whether or not we realize it's happening. And that's really kind of the heart of where we're at. And I want to talk, this has been, as I say, an ongoing journey for me. I don't know that any of us ever reach our full potential, but that doesn't mean we should not strive for it. And, I talk a lot about the old me and what it was like growing up and being and doing. And I always had the goals to be the best. And I think most of us probably did, in whatever arena we were really into, whether that was athletics or music or academics. Everybody has that need, as a young person anyway, to be the best at something. And I think over time, and over the repeated and brutal beatings that we take throughout childhood, throughout young adulthood, and throughout adulthood, we slowly lose that. We get those little reality checks that I'm not going to be Michael Jordan, much as I might like to be. I'm not 6'6". That doesn't mean I couldn't be a wonderful basketball player, or couldn't have, with the proper applications, have become a professional or something, along those lines. But, we had those reality moments throughout our lives that tell us we're not the best maybe at the thing that we wanted to be the best at. Or, we're only marginal, or in some cases, we just aren't good at a particular thing at all. And so we take those cues and file those things in our mental pockets and say, well, I'm never going to be X. I'm not going to be that. And I think some of us over time just give up on trying to be the best, or at the very least, our best. And I think that's really the focus of all of this is, becoming self-actualized, focusing on that self-actualization goes beyond just maximizing a talent and reaches into those mental places for why do we make the decisions we make? What is our motivation? Why are we on an emotional roller coaster all of the time? And I think that's where the journey of self-actualization will pay most of us the greatest dividend. And, as I said, I grew up wanting to be the best thing, the best basketball player, the best artist. And, when I realized I wasn't going to be some of those things, like I say, you kind of shut off. But when I got to be in my 30s, and you've heard me talk about, that period of time where I kind of just shut down, and I wasn't much of anything to anyone. I went to work, I paid my bills, I did those things, rinse and repeat. I did not try to better myself or find out who I was. And when I started to do that, really earnestly, was late in my 30s. And you can watch, one of my very first videos where it was kind of a cry out for help in terms of setting and achieving goals, because I simply didn't know how to do it. I had broken away from that place where it used to be second nature for all of us. And that's one of those school things. And I know some of you turn your nose up at school. It was bad to you. You weren't the smartest in your class, or, you had struggles with reading, this and that. But school in general was great for teaching us cues and lessons about setting goals for ourselves. Because, the obvious goal in any academic situation is to get an A, or to do even better than that in some cases. But it's the goal is to excel academically. And, when you get out of that academic arena, whether you were good at it or not, those lessons learned about setting goals, setting timelines, and achieving and accomplishing things go by the wayside. And so, I stopped trying to do a great many things. But as I said, in that first video was kind of a cry for help, saying, somebody teach me how to set goals again. Teach me how to be a better person. And nobody answered. I got a lot of comments on the video, which is fine. I wasn't expecting a magic bullet, but I think what I learned from that is that there's just a lot of folks out there that are in a similar place and don't necessarily themselves have the answer. And so I began doing some soul searching and trying to become a better person on my own. And I hope, you may agree or disagree, but I hope it ultimately worked for me. But one of those things was my emotional state. I realized I was despondent a lot of the time. A lot of things just really didn't seem to matter to me because I didn't see the relationship or the reality of why or how those things affected me. And so I really had to drill down on myself on why am I despondent? Why is it that I'm not making this connection? Why don't I get excited about anything? And it took time. It always does. Anything worth having takes time. This painting takes a ton of time, but as I pointed out, we're nearing the end. But I had to really get into my own head and understand my own emotions and why I was the way I was. And, I could put myself on the couch in front of you, but that's not what this is about. I did kind of find those things. I figured out why I was detached from so many things. And because of that realization, I was able to start changing. And over time, I now feel things again. But another, kind of random application for this is, I'm sure, this may even be you for that matter, but I'm sure we've all dealt with the coworker or the family member who's generally pretty stable. They're stable, they're predictable, you know what to expect on the daily, and then all of a sudden, bam, they snap. And there's yelling and swearing and throwing of things, and you have to kind of pause and say, well, where did that come from? That's out of character. And maybe it is out of character, maybe it's not, just depends on the person. But one of the things that I discovered through my own personal journey was, once I discovered what motivated me and what caused those types of erratic behaviors from time to time, I was able to curb those. And I no longer have those irrational blow-up moments. And that's not to say I don't have bad days. I have absolutely horrible days sometimes. But I do not let my emotions take control of me anymore. And again, I'm not using myself as an example of how people should be, but I am telling you my story of how I got control of myself. And, maybe you are that wildly emotional person, and maybe that's who you want to be. And that's fine, as long as the people around you understand that too. That's not what a psychiatrist is probably going to tell you when you sit down on their couch. But who you are is okay. You don't have to be perfect all of the time, but being predictable for others, and more specifically for yourself, is where I would like you to try to be, is, so that when you have those moments, why, what the trigger was, so that if you do want to prevent that, if you do want to change that, you now know what those triggers are, and you now know how to stop that. You can take yourself out of those environments. You can step away. You can do the things you need to do to not put yourself at risk of becoming a train wreck, or blowing up at somebody that doesn't deserve to be yelled at, or just to help yourself sleep better at night, because you're not laying awake fretting about all of the things that could be, would be, should be that aren't. So that's been one of the most important parts of my own self-actualization journey, is just understanding how I myself work and what my triggers are. And it's paid huge dividends for me in my personal life, in my professional life. As a manager of other employees, I am better able to understand their behaviors and why they are sometimes erratic. And I've become a student, and hopefully a teacher of sorts, of human emotions and human understanding. Another really not fun, this is never fun, another good example of the self-actualization journey and being consistent in thought and mind is in the world of politics. Oh no, he said it, the P word. That's right, politics. I think most of us at one time or another fell prey to this. And maybe you're still in this place. I was able to drag myself kind of kicking and screaming away from it, because when it comes to politics, we want to be right. We want to feel like we have the moral high ground, and that our political party or our politician of choice is making the right decision. And I think that, that even comes from us in adolescence and childhood, wanting to believe that our parents, our dad, is better than your buddy's dad or the bully's dad. We want to believe those things, and we're almost conditioned to. And it stretches into the political arena, because so many of us have been entrenched in political ideas and ideologies for a very, very long time. And we don't want to look critically at the politicians on our side of the aisle, on the side of the aisle that we approve of most generally. And I think, the most evident part of that, or area of that, is when it comes to budget and spending. Particularly, I can't speak knowledgeably of those of you in other countries and localities and how this works, but I can say that in my lifetime I have yet to see a truly fiscally responsible political party. But yet the Republicans will scream at the top of their lungs when the Democrats present a spending bill. And the Democrats will scream at the top of their lungs when the Republicans present a spending bill. And the truth of the matter is, the spending bills themselves are not that far apart from one another. They all ultimately fund government and the inner workings of it, and there's plenty of pork involved in whichever spending bill is presented, despite what the party in power may tell you. And the question is, do you mindlessly support the spending bill of your own political party simply because it's your own political party? Or do you look at that and say, the spending is out of control? And I am not lecturing on fiscal financial policy, but I am using that to illustrate, how do you respond to those situations? Do you view them objectively regardless of the political party? Or do you knee-jerk support the party that you've always supported because you've always supported? And, that's another one of those areas of self-actualization where once I realized that I had that internal bias, and I've referred to it before, I believe, as stadium bias, which is my own kind of made-up term for when you're in a group of like-minded people, the idea is to cheer on the team because everybody else is cheering on the team, whether you see that the referee call was actually correct or incorrect or whatever. But point being, do you go along with the crowd because you're supposed to go along with the crowd, or do you view things critically and objectively and say, you know what, I don't approve of any additional spending, regardless of the party in power? And again, this is not just about political, fiscal, whatever. That can be applied to any political issue. Am I supporting this, or am I against it simply because my party is, and that's what they tell me to do? Or is it because I've looked at this objectively and have determined that this is what I truly believe? And, those are really hard lessons to learn and to take objectively. And it also, frankly, makes it difficult to have any political discussion with anybody, because when you try to present an objective argument, the supposition from the person you're speaking with is that they are correct. If you are going against, your own party, it's hard for them to understand that you're doing that objectively. But that's just a little piece in the entire puzzle, but it's part of the larger illustrative point of understanding yourself, your biases, what makes you tick, and being able to adjust or change those things because you like them or you don't like that part of yourself. And, you know, one of the hardest things to do is to sit where I'm sitting right now with no music. Oh, there's the alarm. No music, no TV, and just be with yourself in the moment. It can feel like an eternity, especially if you're diving into areas of yourself that you're not particularly proud of. But I can also tell you and assure you that it is time well spent. Getting to know yourself is crucial to your own success and mental health. And, you know, it's going to help you make friends and build relationships if you understand yourself. Because if you don't understand yourself, I can guarantee you, ain't nobody else a gonna. And so I am going to sign off on this here video. The time kind of flew by on me on this one. And as you've been watching, I'm layering and relayering over the same areas, trying to bring that color out. Because as I pointed out, it can go on pretty brilliant and vibrant, but as it dries, it fades into the background. But what we'll have when this is all done, and it's pretty close, what we'll have when this is all done is something kind of obscure in the piece that also will jump out at you if you study it for any particular amount of time. And it adds a character and believability to the piece that I've been missing as I've developed this whole thing. May or may not have another video with this piece. I will show it to you all when it's done regardless, particularly if you're on Instagram. Follow me on Bearded Bristol. But, dry throat time. Got a little bit of scotch. This was really a fun one for me, not only for what I was able to do on the paper, but for the things that I was able to say. And, you know, these are hard topics sometimes, and I'm never here to scold anyone. I'm just here to try to make you think about things that you've never thought of before, or to think about things differently. And that journey of self-actualization is a really important one to me, and hopefully it becomes important to you too. Understanding yourself, your motivations, and your actions is the best and fastest way that I've learned to change. And some of you may not feel you need to change. Good on you. I think that's wonderful. But the journey of self-actualization never actually ends. So, you know, you need to examine yourself periodically. You need to reflect on why you say and do the things you do. And that's going to help you set those goals, those retirement goals, those work goals, those relationship goals. So with that, I'm going to dive right back into the painting here. I hope you all had an interesting visit here, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, go out there and create something. Find a hobby, build something. We'll talk to you again soon.